Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next session of Brain Chats with me, Dr. Janani Dhinakaran, and here, Dr. Steve Kane. Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Dr. Janani?
Pretty good, thank you. So this time it's my turn to pose some questions to you, and I wanted to delve a little bit into the history of Whole Brain Health Initiative. So why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about the foundation of Whole Brain Health?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was back in about 2015 is when it was started. Initially, it was a for-profit. 2017, we shifted to a nonprofit organization. And yeah, I just really wanted to create an organization that revolved around combining what's good for the brain with how to actually get people to do those things. Because there seemed to be a massive disconnect of all this information about what's good for you. And then, okay, people probably already knew they should exercise, already knew should be doing a lot of these things that are good for them, but they're not actually doing them. And more information about what's good for them is just doesn't seem to be the answer. That behavioral change psychology, that whole emphasis on making programs and making the information very digestible and enjoyable to implement seemed to be the best opportunity to help people really optimize their brain health. And yeah, so that was the why behind it. And yeah, I think it was about 2018 or so when you and I synced up and you joined the organization, and that was a big lift for us. And that yeah, that's the origins of it.
Yeah. So I'm wondering why brain health specifically? What drew that interest in you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I was younger, I was much more focused on the physical health. My dad had me lifting weights when I was in third grade, and it was a very beneficial thing for me to have this healthy lifestyle integrated at a young age. And then as I looked into it later on in life, and I was in chiropractic school, I started taking these neurology classes, and I realized that it's not the how much weight you can lift with your body, it's how much you can do with your mind. That's the thing that really allows you to do a lot of special things in this world, and to really help people out, and to just have an impact, which is what I wanted to do. So, and applying a lot of these concepts to myself, what makes for a more powerful, stronger, better functioning brain, and less on what makes for stronger muscles. That really seemed to propel me forward in my life, just my happiness, my effectiveness, and the things that I was doing, the things that were important to me, all that got better. And I wanted to share that with other people. And this is not to say that that there's a massive separation between exercise and physical fitness and brain fitness. There's a huge overlap, but just putting
Mhm.
the emphasis more so on the brain and how much you can do with the brain, as opposed to how much weight you can lift, and monitoring more the former, that really seemed to yield much greater levels of happiness and just overall the quality of life.
Yeah, that sounds like quite the journey. I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into the part where you talked about how chiropraxis, is that what you call it?
Chiropractic.
Um, Chiropractic. Okay. How chiropractic informed your interest in brain health? Can you go a little bit more into the neurology aspect that inspired you? What were the overlaps?
Sure. So initially, when I'm in chiropractic school, they're talking about this almost this like Disney version of chiropractic and the connection to the nervous system. They talk about how if a joint in the spine is misaligned, it can press down on a nerve, and that pressure on the nerve can create a disconnect between the rest of the body and the brain. And while there's some truth to that, and in some cases that is exactly what's going on, it's that radiculopathy, that pinched nerve description was just it wasn't as encompassing as what my mind really wanted to uncover. And that's what at the school I was at, Life University down in Georgia, their philosophical focus was on the nervous system. That's what chiropractic is great for. It's not just back pain. It's not just mobilizing joints, but it's optimizing the nervous system. But the only explanation they were getting was this pinched nerve description. And I was like, doesn't quite add up to me, at least not in the bulk of the cases of the patients that I'm working with. So I delved deeper. They had a neurology club on campus, and I started learning more about all these different aspects of chiropractic, the proprioceptive input, this afferentation to the cerebellum, to the cortex, and how just movement in general, but especially in the spine, which is saturated with motion receptors, how that can be a very healthy thing for the brain. And just that being under the umbrella of exercise and movement, and how just moving our body is an incredibly essential nutrient for our nervous system and our brain. And then all these other things with nutrition and our thoughts and our sleep. And so it was through this functional neurology program that I got into, first the regular one, then I started taking the advanced program that they had. I started doing these weekend seminars, and I just fell in love with it, and it just really, really jived me. It really allowed me to delve much more deeper and really get this foundational understanding of the connection between the brain and the body, and all the different things we can do to make the best of the nervous system and the brain that we have.
Yeah, that's an interesting path, because I think given our backgrounds are quite different, I've never thought about how the neurology can actually impact the brain, as opposed to the brain being the central controlling things. I've always looked more emphasis on the central nervous system rather than the peripheral. And I think that shifts the focus for me, and that actually that explains a lot of why you emphasize physical exercise so much. So it was really interesting to hear that that part of your background that I didn't know before. So
Jenny,
right.
just to can I spin off that real quick here? We talk about the kind of the peripheral nervous system going up to the brain, as opposed to the brain going to the peripheral nervous system. Just something I thought you might find interesting. One of the trivia questions we've done in fitness trivia is, do we have more nervous system wiring going from our brain to our heart, or from our heart to our brain? And
I've seen this one.
Okay, you've seen it before.
I shouldn't answer.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not surprised you already know, and my background here, that's kind of the emphasis too, is leading with the heart, and that we're neurologically designed to listen to our heart. Like, more information goes from our heart to our brain, and yeah, so perhaps our brain is more designed to listen than it is to tell and dictate and make all the decisions necessarily. So I just wanted to. I thought that was a cool. That was a cool segue.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I think one of the first things we learned in biology was the SAN, that is the pacemaker, sinoatrial node, right? I've always wondered, what is it that makes it create that impulse that makes the entire heart beat? It seems to work on its own, and I never really understood, how does it work? What is directing it? It's one of those foundation, like, as soon as I started learning human biology, that was one of the first mysteries. And here you are telling us about how much more, what would you say, like, neurally rich the heart is than we usually expect it to be? Is that how you would phrase it?
I think so, yeah. And you've been referenced in some of the trivia questions that when people have a heart transplant, the donor can actually take on some of the memories of the person who died and had their heart donated to the recipient. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of nervous tissue, a lot of nervous system consciousness throughout our body, outside of our brain.
Right. And I think I know that this is a tangent, but I should just tell you, because this is one of those things that within lifestyle medicine, we talk about or mind-body medicine, we talk about the connection between the brain and the body, or the mind and the body not being really a connection, but they are actually the same thing. So when you say the memories were stored in the heart of the donor, I mean, I've heard of this case. Apparently, some criminal case was solved by these memories that were transplanted into the recipient. It just makes me want everyone to acknowledge and understand just how much of our mind is in the body, and it's not just somewhere else. Because people often just kind of disconnect the emotions. Oh, it's just in your head, as if that's not part of your body too. Like, it's just in your thoughts. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was a really fascinating aspect to the nerves. And my Qigong teacher would also talk about how there are some secrets that are only in your gut. in terms of secrets, like your past memories and experiences that is just in your enteric nervous system. So I was fascinated because the Taoist system talks about the three dantians, which is the head, the heart, and the belly. It corresponds with the nervous complexity of the head, the heart, and the gut. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. All right, let's get back into our. So, yeah. So, how did you and Charles meet? When you say he's a co-founder, right? You and Charles founded it together. So, what's the story behind how you met? What was like? How did you move from profit to nonprofit? What was going on there?
Sure. So I want to say it was about 2016 was when Charles and I had first met. It was at a Toastmasters organization. We were both interested in refining our public speaking skills. So when we first met, there was some sort of connection. We realized we had to share. Oh, it was a wellness Toastmaster. So people that are interested in both wellness and refining their public speaking skills. So we initially had met there, but it was actually at an ecstatic dance. And for people that don't know what that is, it's just this free form movement, very expressionist, very artsy kind of dancing where you're just very supposed to kind of trust your intuition and move the way that feels right to you as they're playing music. You're not supposed to talk. There's no drinking. Not supposed to do any drugs. So it's supposed to be this very sober, very conscious experience that you have, and having everything connected. Maybe not connecting the mind body because it's already connected, but just having everything, synergistically, moving and in a very connected with the music way. And it was after that they have these social aspects where you get to talk and chat with each other. And I remember we were throwing grapes towards each other, trying to catch it in our mouth. And I remember I threw one in his mouth. It was like perfect. And he threw one and he like completely missed like several feet away. And we just giggled and laughed. And from that point on, there's a really awesome connection. And we realized that we not just had shared interests, but that we could have a lot of fun, around these shared interests that we had. So it was around, roughly 2016. And then 2017 was when we made it a nonprofit. And this was essentially that the mission is more important than the profit. That's what's going to drive the organization, is the impact that we get to have. And that was essentially the bottom line. It opened up more doors. When I was reaching out different senior centers, there were a handful that said, we only work with nonprofits, or there are other organizations that just, there's a higher trust level, I believe. And that's what we want to lead with, is that the most important thing is that we're able to help as many people as possible. And that will always be the priority over the financial gain. Obviously, the finances is still important. That enables more of the impact to be had. But when the decisions are made between, prioritizing one or the other, it's definitely the mission that's more important.
Wonderful. Yeah. I happen to heartily agree with that approach. Oh, nice. Okay. So you emphasized a couple of times already in this interview about the necessary component of fun. And so that actually brings me to the next set of questions that I have about how do you come up with these formats which are so engaging?
Yeah, it's not just me. It's we got a fun group of people that are collectively involved in the organization. You and Charles, and I've had some other people come and go that have all had good ideas. But yeah, I think it's just kind of been my nature to just try to make the healthy living the fun journey. I think just kind of how I've been wired throughout my vast majority of my life. I never thought of exercise as something that I had to do, something I need to just kind of get through and do. Is always something that I look forward to. That quite often the exercise is very regularly a highlight of my day, and then it became more so figuring out other ways to get people to see that joy. So yeah, I don't think there's sometimes ideas come to me when I'm going for a bike ride. Sometimes they just in conversation they come up. I think it's just kind of my nature, and just how I'm wired, is to constantly try to find that overlap between what's healthy and how do we make this as indulging and as enticing as possible.
So you're saying it's a lot more intuitive than a structured methodology that you follow. Is it like you're collecting information in the back of your mind of what are the seniors enjoying the most in their non whole brain health based programs, like they like bingo or they like something else, and then you say, okay, how can we take the fun elements of those and then integrate it into something healthy? But is that more a intuitive process for you to come up with it, or is it like a very deliberate observation with that intent?
It's both. Yeah, there's definitely an intuitive thing. There's definitely a just paying attention and listening and having structured conversations around it. Back
Mm-hmm.
in 2016, 2017, I want to say it was just about every day out of the week, Charles and I would talk about the programs that we had done and, what are the, how do you make it even more fun? Like it was like a very deliberate, structured conversation that we're having on a regular basis. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and probably as of now, it's more, we periodically have these types of conversations, but I think there's just a lot of trial and error of, I've noticed that they tend to really like Elvis. What would happen if I dressed up as Elvis and, did a program like that? Let's go find out. So
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I think the Brain Club format, would you like to go into that, or are you, you're not doing any brain clubs as such anymore?
yeah, so the Brain Club is something that I've kind of let you and Amrita focus
Amrita?
on for the time
Mhm.
being, and I kind of focus on some other structures. So yeah, if you want to talk about the Brain Club structure, probably best for you to kind of discuss the structure and how you've been enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I didn't realize and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this, the genius behind the format until I started doing it with the group. So if you had put me in that position, given my background, academic, I would have just started with lectures, right? Like, we're going to learn about the cerebellum today. So, I mean, that's not going to engage anyone. It's not fun for most people unless they're students or they're trying to do something academic with it. So when I started doing this, I was like, oh, only 20 minutes for content? Is that really enough? That was my approach to it. And then I saw, okay, so for those of you who don't know, the Brain Club format is we start with some riddles or jokes, and then we go into some deep breathing and some challenges like movements or dancing, or like sometimes we do qigong, sometimes we do just plain old dancing in the song and just move around. And then there's a component for memory questions or partner questions, and we call it dance to remember. So you dance right before you do that. You partner off with someone you don't know, and you ask them a set of 10 questions. And your objective is to pay attention in a way that you can remember their answers at the end of class. So we come back to that. And between the two, so the part where you learn your partner's question, your answers, and then the part that you go check that you remember all 10 answers. In the middle is a 20-minute section where I, as a presenter or facilitator, would present something about lifestyle. So if the topic is the or fermented foods, we talk about some of the basic things, the theory behind it, and then if it's possible to include an activity with it, we would actually have, say, distribution of kombucha culture in class. And then we would go back to the questions and see how much of your partner's answers do you remember. So this was a format, and I think it's extremely interesting, mainly because it involves physical movement with all the dancing or the qigong, and the breathing element, which is, even though you call it breathing, it's actually like you're sneaking in a bit of meditation into the class without calling it that, just in case it doesn't suit some people to think of it like that. And you have something to make them laugh, and you give them plenty of space for them to socialize with each other. They are exercising their attention and memory, but they're also connecting with the rest of the group, which is highly, I would say, more valuable in many ways, because people come to that group, come to Brain Club for that purpose of connecting with others and having a community where they can share their ideas. And one of the modifications that I've made is since we moved to online virtual Brain Clubs, I have added the boggle. and some jumble, some challenges for them, as well as I do like once a month or once in 2 months, I'll do a sharing session. So we all talk about the books we've been reading or some movie we've seen, but I do less talking and it's mainly them who are sharing their stories with the rest of the class. So they get to kind of take on a little bit of the teacher's role for some time. So I think this really builds community, and that's fascinating. So even though like I didn't appreciate it in the beginning, I think I've grown to just wonder and marvel at the structure. And similarly, Steve, I've really liked the way that you put together fitness trivia and Jeopardy now. Do you want to talk about those formats a bit?
Sure. Yeah. So the fitness trivia is essentially what it sounds like, where there's fitness, there's exercise combined with the trivia. So people, they'll be guided on a simple exercise to do. Maybe they're just have their arms out to the side, doing circles to tone the shoulders. And then while they're doing that, I read a trivia question and give them some time to think, maybe give them a clue, and then give them the answer and move on to the next one. Sometimes the trivia questions are jokes. Sometimes they're brain health related. Sometimes they're just anything that might appeal, particularly to the, yeah. So this, so the combination of the two, having something to distract them from the exercise if they don't like it, and then having the exercise, which can actually help them better remember the stuff that they're learning with the trivia because they're more physically engaged. I think there's a very great synergy between them, and for a lot of people, it's just made exercise a lot more fun. And some feedback we've gotten, it really helps to brighten up their day. And then the Jeopardy game it doesn't have the exercise element, so it's just but it makes learning fun. It makes, again, one of the categories is always brain health, and then there's riddles for kind of like a brain exercise, and then there's just trivia about random relevant stuff. Right now it's summer, so we got summertime related trivia questions, and sometimes I'll dress up as Elvis or different characters, sometimes more professional depending on the audience. And it's just, this whole gamification, making these learning about health or engaging in health just much more fun, making it a game, making it a colorful thing. It definitely seems to be much more inviting and having a lot more people want to participate in it.
Yeah, and I definitely think that it helps them remember it when it's more fun, because they're like, oh, do you know, I learned in fitness trivia that this XYZ is true, and maybe we should do this and we should try something, so it sparks a conversation, and it keeps them thinking about it and talking about it, which I think is greatly beneficial, because it's not just when they're actually with you that they reap the benefit, but they're talking about it afterwards and engaging other people with that conversation. So the effect is more like it ripples out. So I think it's pretty cool. Those formats are also quite amazing.
Yeah, I've got a question I want to get your perspective on. And it's just kind of the whole learning in general. And obviously, it's been a while since I've been in school now, but that structured, lectured format that you're talking about, that you envision, is how you would initially do a brain club, where it's mostly present the lecture, maybe offer some Q&A at the end, and then you move on to the next class. And the way we have our program section is much more interactive. And I think of learning as not just this passive rote memory, just sitting and listening, maybe writing down, but talking about it, physically engaging with it, trying to get analogies, things that you can really build off, things that are relevant to your own life, which, again, when you can talk with people about it, you come back to the brain club, where you have those 10 questions. Quite often those 10 questions would be related to brain health, and they get to kind of personalize it for their own life, and start thinking futuristically, what are these things that are going to apply, how am I going to apply it? And so it just gets me thinking about again, I don't know exactly the state. I feel like the state of the current educational system has progressed in this direction, but from what I sense, it is still not where it ought to be in terms of having as much engagement, having as much conversation, as much physical activity as would really optimize for learning whatever the schools or the systems are trying to teach. So what are your thoughts around that? Whether it's college or younger schooling systems, and how close are they to where they ought to be in embodying these very important aspects about learning?
I think that if the education system was informed by brain health and neuroscientists, generally speaking, they would definitely postpone the starting time for many of the schools, because sleep is just not happening, especially for teenagers, where the natural cycle of sleep tends to be go to sleep later and get up later. That's actually pretty normal for them to shift that way. But it's also at that age where they have a lot of pressure. They get up for early morning classes and then they go into school really early as well. And it's very contra, it works against their natural needs, I would say. And that really does impact their performance and their brain health, short term and long term. So that would be the first thing that I would say, hey, could you like maybe think of doing that a little differently? That would be helpful. The other thing is exactly what you said about there's an authority figure in front. There are a bunch of students sitting in the classroom looking and passively listening. The interactive element, there's actually a really cool book called Becoming Brilliant. And it talks about the 6 C's that go into successful education. So one is communication skills, which happen in more collaborative learning systems. And then, so when they say when you go into the school, check how the desks are organized. Are they all facing the blackboard, or is it groups, put together? And so when the second one is collaboration, communication collaboration. So when you have a problem and you say split off into groups and figure out how to solve it, and you have so many different ideas, each person gets a chance to say something and to contribute, and they're working together. Say you're good at the measuring part, I'm good at the calculating part, or I'm good at the cutting the wood part, or whatever, right? So it's like it's a different skills that come together. So that's also important. And then the other C's are critical thinking, creative problem solving, or creativity, generally speaking. And then curiosity. Was it curiosity? And then there's one more, which is confidence. So like these are the 6 C's. But I think that the education system could do a better job of actually looking at the education literature, the studies that have shown which methodologies result in more effective learning, and then keep reinventing and revisiting and looking at things differently, trying different things until you're like trying to kind of integrate the best of the current knowledge into your system, rather than waiting 40 years to like start to make some changes once the science has been there and it's old. So yeah, I think generally a lot of systems are more conservative and they don't change fast enough to adapt very obvious things that have been shown in the science. But I mean, all you need is like enough people from the neuroscience and the education research teams to kind of come and communicate their findings to the educators and have that link. And I think things will be a lot better faster.
Yeah, I hope so. How old are your children? Are they in school yet?
8. Yeah, one is 8, one is 2.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be curious to get your perspective on, yes, that 8-year-old and how their schooling system is and how close it is to that ideal, type of, learning structure. And, hopefully I get to that at some point too, and I get to, have those conversations. But yeah, I think it's, I agree. It just seems like this very slow moving system that is, at least when I was learning back when I was in middle school, high school, it seemed in most cases very opposite. Just this rote information dump. Okay, just remember all that and remember enough of it to pass your test when you take your test. And I used to study quite deeply a lot of the memory experts. People that can memorize a deck of cards in less than 30 seconds, do all sorts of incredible feats, and they all say like that normal schooling system with that rote memory, like that's the worst way to learn. Like you need stories, you need to convert it into pictures. There's like this concept of a memory palace where you kind of you align different things in your house or anywhere you spend a lot of time, and you do a circle through it, and you pin different visual objects to these different parts of your house. And like these strategies are just allow people to do these incredible things with their memory. It's like, why is that not being embodied in the school system? And that, so there's a lot of opportunity for improvement, and hopefully these kind of conversations help contribute to that growth.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you were talking about the imagery and the stories, I was thinking of my biology teacher in my 8th grade. And he was talking about the cell, the plant cell, like it was some fortress. So you have to get past the cell wall, and then you have the guards that are
Okay.
the cell membrane. And he
Yeah.
wouldn't tell us this like a story. He would say, so you encounter this big mesh. What is it? Oh my goodness, how are you going to get past it? And like, then what's next? Like, what else do you need to protect the inside of this like big castle? So he kind of did it more as if we already knew the answers, and he was just leading us through. So I think that's called the Socratic method, and that was very effective because we had the impression as the students that we already knew this stuff. So, and I think when we come
Eh,
up with the answers, it's a lot more effective than if we were told the answers. So sometimes being asked a question is a better way to learn than being told information.
Absolutely.
So I think he was the best teacher ever. And also, I mean, I went to a different school. So, I mean, there are the conventional systems, and then there's a little bit more alternative education systems. They approach education quite differently. So I was quite fortunate to be part of one of those schools. But yeah, they do exist all over in little pockets. You just have to know where to look.
Yeah, it brings up a good point. I think something I ought to I put emphasis on before, but I think I could put more on is you want to build up self-esteem. You want to make people feel competent. You want to make them feel smart the way you design the programs and the questions. And yeah, I found that people like that feeling. They enjoy feeling
Mhm.
smart. They want to follow the things that make them feel good. And I've even seen research where when people think that they're smart or they think that they're doing well, that they perform better. So
Yeah.
there's that. Yeah, there's that effect too.
It's interesting. I think that is something that maybe we do quite often in our programs as well, because one of the things that I notice is a lot of the people who come in, they may not have a lot of other kinds of social contact. So when they contribute an idea and then you go further into the content and you connect something you say back to what they said, they feel
Hmm.
greatly validated. And I think
Yeah,
that is that's profound, and for them to feel like, hey, she listened, she understood, she paid attention, and then she also connected it back to whatever I said or whatever she wants to present. So I think that that also helps, because if you're actually paying attention, and this happens only if you care about them enough to know, okay, you said this, I'm going to say,
right.
you guys mentioned this example, so here's what you actually mentioned. Here's it's on the board right now. Like, how cool is that? So you covered half the stuff, and I don't even need to talk about it because you guys already know this stuff. So I mean, it feels really good for them, and it saves me a lot of work. Like, I don't have to sit and explain everything. It's like really nice for them to be given that chance to say what they know first, and then just kind of fill in some of the or like put it all together. And I think that that works well, even in like our programs, not just for kids.
Agreed.
All right. All right. Okay. So a lot of our programs are designed for seniors. Um, so I was wondering, ideally, what age would the interventions have the highest impact, and which programs would be equally interesting for all age groups? What do you think?
Yeah. So the first question in which at what age is it going to have the greatest impact? I definitely think that so our programs are designed for pre-dementia, like full on Alzheimer's, the ability to follow through and listen to a program and pay attention for an hour long for the brain club, or to exercise and try to comprehend a trivia question simultaneously at the same time. It's just a bit much. So I mild cognitive impairment and before, I think is what our programs are designed for. And that's where I feel like they're going to have the greatest impact. I remember listening to a neurologist talk about treating Alzheimer's and what can be done, and at what point are they going to have a better solution or treatment. And he described it as like, when if you think of having Alzheimer's, like the advanced stage, it's like the brain is so bright. It's like a house that's just like completely burned down. Like you've envisioned a house is like, 80% of it's just completely burnt. And it's like the try to, build it back up. It's like and the, um, in that world, they just knock it down, just create a new one. Obviously, we can't do that with our brain, but
Mm,
that's like what it's trying to do, and it's just not very realistic. This is the picture he was painting when you're that advanced dementia to really in most cases to get yourself really functioning, really thriving again, and that the best opportunity is more preventative. And when you're at mild cognitive impairment, when things are just starting to not be so good, you can still make meaningful improvements, and most certainly you can ward off and maintain a decent quality of life for a much longer time. So I'd say anywhere mild, like just starting to experience some memory loss, just starting to experience some cognitive issues, and before is where we're going to have the greatest impact, and where our programs are aligned. And I'm sorry, the second question that was which programs are designed for who? Was that the second aspect to the question?
yeah. So, I mean, are there some of the programs that would be appealing even to people in their teens, 20s, 30s? And would it make a difference for them to be taking on more or like participating in these programs at such an early stage? Would that make a significant difference for them in terms of prevention, or should they wait a little longer until they get involved, maybe after they retire? So which programs would be appealing for what age groups?
Yeah, so there's, the way the programs are structured, they tend to emphasize topics that appeal more so to seniors. So,
Mm,
talking about Alzheimer's, dementia, that's a much greater concern for seniors than it is for younger people. Quite often in the programs, well, like if I dress up as Elvis, or we do trivia around the 60s or the 50s, they just tend to gravitate and attract more people of that age. However, there's obviously young people that still appreciate Elvis, still appreciate music from the 50s, and still are interested in understanding Alzheimer's, whether it's they just want to be very preventative themselves, or they have a parent or a grandparent that's just starting to show some signs of having some issues. It's definitely open to everyone. We've had younger people, we've had teenagers come to the program before, and
mhm.
really enjoy it. So it's
Yeah.
it's more so the general topic, the structure, the vibe of it. It's while it is, probably caters a bit more towards seniors, it's definitely open to everyone, and not all seniors are going to like it, and not all younger people are going to not be intrigued by it. So
Mm,
I think there's that intuitiveness that everyone should tap into. Is this something that I think I would enjoy? Is this good for me? Do I want to learn what they have to offer? Then yeah, it's anyone and everyone I think should at least be aware of it, whether it's for themselves or for someone that they care about.
yeah, that nicely segues into my next question. What are the things that you would recommend for those who have family history of dementia? What can the children do? What are the conversations that parents and children need to have? What would you recommend for them?
Uh, so for one, I think that there's some genetic testing that can be done. So there's the late stage onset Alzheimer's and early stage onset Alzheimer's. So the vast majority of people are the late stage. So that's 65 and older. And if they have the early onset dementia, that seems to be very genetically driven, and it's very unfortunate. But again, like 1 to 2% of everyone that has Alzheimer's is in that early onset stage. So if any of your parents had it at a rather young age, they had significant Alzheimer's, getting some genetic testing to find if you might unfortunately be have that same fate, and being able to plan accordingly, I think it'd be beneficial. But again, vast majority, and this is for people that their parents, if neither of their parents had that early stage onset, then they don't need to worry about the genetic testing. If it is the late onset Alzheimer's where the parents, grandparents had it, I think people should think less about genetics and more about lifestyle. I
Mm,
way too often people attribute, oh, my parents or grandparents were obese or diabetic, or had X, Y, and Z health condition, and it's like, and that we have this lineage of it. And it's like, yes, you have genetic lineage. You also have a cultural, you also have a lifestyle, habitual type lineage too. And that's
mm,
something that can, is very much can be changed, can be broken, and to
mhm,
really put your focus on the lifestyle aspect of it. And most of the time when I dig in and ask people these questions, yeah, they had Alzheimer's, they had diabetes, they had whatever condition. It's like, okay, well, tell me about their life. Tell me about the things that they did. Oh, well, yeah, I guess they didn't eat the best diet, they didn't exercise a whole lot, they didn't do all the things that could have potentially prevented that, or at least slowed it down and pushed it into a later part of their life. And I
Right.
think that that's really how people ought to focus. What is
Mm.
how close am I to my ceiling of how good am I taking care of my brain, my health as a whole? And if there's a big gap, then close that gap as much as you can. If there's a little gap, then just even the closer you can get to doing that, the more and more you can expect a lot of really good things to happen.
Mm. All right. So, would you recommend that people with family history would talk about prevention steps to their children, and what age would that happen?
Uh, Yeah, I think the conversation can go both ways depending on the age of the children. My parents are in their late 60s, and so this is obviously me being a part of this organization. They are just naturally hearing a lot of this type of content and information. Um, so it's something that can go both ways. The parents can, and I'm sure you have our conversation with the 8-year-old, and probably not
Yeah.
too long away from the 2-year-old. You're going to be having these types of conversations just because it's going to be a very important thing. You're never too young to invest in your brain health. Obviously, the things when you're
Mhm.
less than 10 years old, you're not concerned about Alzheimer's later on, but the more you can connect it to what is relevant for them at that point, you can do better in
Mhm.
school, you're going to feel better, you're going to have more energy, you're going to whatever it is that they care about at that age. And even though
Right.
they're probably not in the mindset of caring a whole lot about what their quality of life is like when they're in their 70s, um, building up those habits now, it can definitely, I mean, the trajectory of brain health and how the brain performs, throughout life, the earlier you invest in it, just like financial investing, it's never too late, it's never too early to invest. The strategies might be a little bit different based off where you're at and how you do it, but it is most certainly always something that you can and should be mindful of, and getting the most out of our brain, our mind, our body. It's yeah, it's something I've never heard of anyone create these habits that are cultivating a healthier, better functioning brain, and regret that they had done it later on.
I totally agree. One question with regard to that I often encounter with people who come to me for other problems, chronic illnesses like autoimmunity. I find that they're not willing to make the changes unless they hit rock bottom, or they've been told by the doctor that if you don't lose weight, you're in for XYZ, and they have like a list of threats. Or they say you have to get on these really dangerous medications for the next 3 years to bring down XYZ problem, right? So I think that when they're even I've met people who are pre-diabetic who are not willing to make any differences, any changes at all, until they hit diabetes. And even then, they're willing to just get on the medication rather than to actually do anything about it. So part of it, I think there's maybe like a passivity involved in the way that people look at their health. And also there is I'm just so busy. I don't have time. I have to work this hard to make ends meet. And, how am I going to fit a healthy lifestyle within all of this? What would you say to people who fall into either of those categories? Like, I'm too busy, or I don't just care. I just don't care enough. I feel very passive. A doctor needs to fix me rather than me taking on responsibility. What would you say to them?
Yeah, those are really good questions. And the the first one, one of there's this guy named Alex Hormozy. He's big in the business world. He's also just a power lifter, and just he's very successful, very intelligent person. And and he talks about this through the lens of marketing or sales. And people say, "I'm not going to buy into this because I'm just too busy." And his response, I think, is great. It's like, okay, are you going to be busy in the future? He's like, at some point. He's like, right now you're thinking maybe you wait till a point where you're not busy, and then maybe you might bite and try something like this out. At that and later on in your life, you're going to get busy again at some point, right? Yeah, of course you're going to get
Mm.
busy at some point. Okay, so it actually makes more sense to do it right now. If you're busy right now, you have the skills, you have the mindset, you have the ability to implement this and continue doing it while you're busy. Where later on, if you do it while you're not busy, then you're just going to fall off the bandwagon when you get busy again. So right now, this is actually, this is where you really want to train. This is the foundational, part of your life where if you implement it now, you are good to go. You wait till later on, and then you have it pinned in your mind that this is only something I do when I'm not busy, and not something that's a priority in my life, and I'm going to continue doing for the rest of my life. So I think that's one way to think about it from that standpoint. And then obviously just kind of come into to both the questions is just how high of a priority is it? And there's, to be honest, there's I want it for everyone. I want everyone to feel this healthiness, this vibrancy that both you, myself, and the people in our circle feel on a regular basis. I want everyone to feel it, because in my mind, I know that they would enjoy it, they would love it. It's such a wonderful thing. But people have different values. People, other people feel a similar way about religion. If everyone just adopted my religion, they'd be better out there. And I think there's a certain point of we need to let people decide the life that they want to live. And if they want to, not enjoy their golden years as much as they can by indulging, more so at a younger age, it's everyone's life to live. But I do feel like a lot of people, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people do end up regretting and wish they had adopted at least some degree of healthier lifestyle habits earlier in life. And I think it's on a person by person basis. As you mentioned, I think some people need to hit rock bottom. They need to have that scare. They need to have that first heart attack. They need to have something that just really emotionally gets them to think differently about the situation. And there's an analogy from a book. I forgot the name of the book, but there's the elephant and there's the rider. The elephant is the emotional system in our mind, and the rider is the thinking part of the brain. And it's the emotions are the things that really drive us, our feelings, our emotions. And all we can do with our mind is to try to help kind of align our emotions in the right way to bring us in the direction that we want to go. Our emotions are incredibly powerful, and however we can tap into the power of emotions and try to align their emotions in a way that are going to bring them towards leading a more healthy lifestyle. If you can ask the questions that draw it out of them, do you want to be at your children or your grandchildren's, high school graduation? If that's not important to you, then by all means continue to eat the Twinkies. If that is important to you, then just asking questions like that. There's things that are going to really stir up what really deeply matters to them. And just the more you can connect it to feelings as well. People want to eat the Twinkies or whatever because of that short-term pleasurable feeling that they get. But if you can somehow just continually reconfigure their wiring, their thinking about when I eat a salad, that's that immediate pleasure maybe isn't quite as intense as the Twinkie, but how I feel the next couple hours, and if I habitually do this, how I feel on a day in, day out basis, like that really integrate and making that conscious connection between that feeling. I think that's another thing that can potentially get people to move it up the totem pole in terms of their priorities, and hopefully get them to take action on it.
Oh yeah, well said. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. So is there anything I should have asked that I didn't ask?
I think you asked some incredible questions. I think that the last couple of questions you asked is an extremely good question to ask. I think that's the elephant in the room, or the girl in the room. I think that's one of the most important things that not just you and I should be talking about, but just the industrialized countries as a whole. Like, this is really what they need to be thinking from working with people individually on a systemic level, like culturally, like how can we start moving the needle forward and getting people to prioritize their health. So what do you think I might have missed in that answer? What else do you think is important for getting people to prioritize and take action with their own health?
I think part of it is also recognizing that you have that power, which I think many people don't. They think of it as illness happens to me, rather than I could do something to change the course of my life. So that's what I meant by the passive approach, like doctor, please fix me, rather than I'm going to take charge and figure this out. So I think if people realize the power that they have, they may actually exert a bit more control. They may actually think, what can I do differently to, and also to look at what is health, because I think people, so long as they don't have a diagnosis, they think they're healthy. But they end up living with a lot of mediocrity in terms of their quality of life, and they get used to it for so long that they don't realize that it doesn't have to be like that. And there are things that we can do to help you thrive rather than just survive somehow. So I think if they get a taste of how it is to be like really energetic and healthy, that could help them be more incentivized, and to just know, like, be educated on how much control you have. So just publicizing the WHO numbers of how much cancer, diabetes, and all these non-communicable diseases can be prevented by lifestyle. If people could just shout that from the balconies, from their rooftops, and say, look, all this can be done, and it's all in your hands, or at least a lot of it is in your hands. I think that awareness could also help to fight the passivity that people bring to when they think about their health.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the only thing that I'd add to your answer.
Yeah, I completely agree. Do you know what the stat is on that? The non-communicable diseases, like what percentage of them are preventable or can be, significantly influenced through a healthy lifestyle?
I think it's
Uh,
something like 93% of diabetes, type 2 diabetes. I'm not sure about the cardiovascular, but certain cancers is 40%. That is a lot of people that don't have to suffer, be scared, feel alone, or afraid, or die. That's a lot of people. And just by not smoking, staying active, not
right,
drinking in excess or at all, eating a better, like more vegetables, moving, I mean, these sound very commonsensical, but people end up spending all day on their gadgets in front of their screens, and they're just there. They're just sitting and they're not moving. So
right.
yeah, I think if the awareness was a little bit better on these fronts, and these numbers were splashed all over the place, like instead of going on about random political stuff like who said what, and like it's kind of use that space, use that people's attention to spread information which empowers people and not just dumbs them down and says, let's all be part of the system where you are going to have to take at least 6 pills every morning for the rest of your life. That's like, it feeds a certain power structure to have people not be empowered. And that's definitely something difficult to fight, but we can fight it at
Yeah.
least.
No, this is an excellent point, and probably the foundational point is that they need to have that belief that they can make significant improvements. If they don't have that, then there's no point in putting in the effort. So yeah, very
Yeah.
nice.
All right. Well, thanks, Steve, for making the time to chat and have a complete interview. And I hope you have a good rest of your day and that people enjoyed this conversation on YouTube.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. And just for all our viewers out there, feel free to leave any comments down below as to particular topics you'd like us to discuss. And we appreciate you listening in, and looking forward to the next one.
Sounds good. All right. Let's find down and record.